Good morning, everybody, or good afternoon if you're on the East Coast. We are so glad to have people joining us today, and we have part of our experiment today sneaking away from us as we come live today. So we're going to give everyone just a minute to jump on with us and solve any technical issues that they may be having, and get everybody online. We know lots of people are trying to get online right now with everybody being on the internet. So we'll give it just a sec.
In the meantime, Mom, what do you call a fish with no eyes?
I do not know, Vivi Rose. What do you call a fish with no eyes?
Fish. And I think that joke is pretty funny. It's a dad joke.
A funny dad joke. So you call it a fish, huh? Okay. All right. So we know people are trying to connect. So again, we're giving it just a second before we get started into the meat of what we're doing today. That was a great joke, Vivi Rose. If you are having some difficulty or your connection's not great, or if you start this live event or this live stream and somehow you get disconnected, make sure to go ahead and subscribe to our YouTube channel. At the end of the event, we will be ready to go with the recording as soon as all the buffering and stuff happens, and it'll be there recorded for you to revisit anytime on EarthEcho's YouTube channel. So just go ahead, and Vivi Rose likes to say,
smash that subscribe button.
Smash the subscribe button. So then what are we doing today?
We are going to explore our backyard.
Well, yes, we are. We're going to kind of explore our backyard. We brought the backyard to the table, right?
Yeah.
Right. So we brought the backyard to the table. We were hoping to take people out and explore our backyard because it's a pretty cool backyard in general. But we were worried that the internet wouldn't be cooperative. So we brought some of our backyard in to talk with you guys about. So what we want to talk about, though, it's not really just our backyard, is it?
Biodiversity.
It's right. It's biodiversity. So biodiversity in our backyard. That's the title today, right? Backyard biodiversity.
Yeah.
All right. So Viv, what's biodiversity?
So I'm just gonna break it down into some parts.
Okay.
So bio means life or living things.
Okay, so bio means life or living things.
And diversity, that means a variety or lots of things. So they're together and you make biodiversity. So I think I covered all the bases there.
You covered all the bases there? Awesome. Okay, so, right, but you're exactly right. Biodiversity, it's a big word. People get a little bit intimidated by a big word, but it's a big word that is pretty simple to understand. Is there a variety of living things in the world? There are a variety of living things in an ecosystem. There are a variety of living things in our backyard, right? Yeah, there really are. So when people talk about biodiversity, a lot of the time, they give these big examples, sometimes that seem far, far away, that are not really like you're talking about your backyard. They talk about coral reefs, because those are hot spots of biodiversity. Tropical rainforests are hot spots of biodiversity. But there's a ton of biodiversity just in your backyard, right?
There is.
There is. So, but there are also 3 types of biodiversity, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to talk about 3 types of biodiversity right now, but the one that we're really talking a lot about today is the one that everybody kind of commonly understands, which is species biodiversity. So species biodiversity are that there are a lot of different species that make up the biodiversity of like an ecosystem. And so one of the things that we thought it would be fun to do, since our backyard is kind of right next to a really special ecosystem, one of my very, very favorite ecosystems, right?
The salt marsh.
The salt marsh, right. So Vivi Rose and I are in southeastern US. We're in coastal South Carolina. We have a ton of really awesome salt marshes around here. And so yesterday we took a little walk, truly just around our corner and to the salt marsh, and we traipsed around in the mud for a while. And while traipsing around in the mud, we looked for some things that could be an example of species biodiversity. And this is what we came up with. So if our folks that are helping us with the cameras will help us out a little bit. So we brought some stuff from the marsh that are examples of the marsh biodiversity. And so what we're looking at here, this is a little fiddler crab. He's trying to get away. He's got a little buddy in here too. There's a couple of them. Here's another little lady, the lady fiddler crab. So there those guys are. And so these guys are pretty cool. We like to not bother them too much, but you can see he's got his big wavy claw right there. That means he's a little annoyed with us right now.
I call it
his pincher claw. Yeah. So these guys are part of the salt marsh. They live right up next to this big guy right here, who used to be in that dish with these fiddler crabs, but they kept climbing out. What's this, Vivi Rose?
The mussel.
Right, a mussel. So, and here he goes again. Let's get him to stay back in there. So we've got a mussel, and all of these guys stay very close to this big piece of grass, and you can see kind of the bottom of it, but we'll show you on the larger camera in just a minute what it looks like. But if you look right down in there, I don't know if you guys can see that right there, that is a marsh periwinkle. Okay, and that marsh periwinkle is attached, and there are a couple more down in there too, that are attached to this big blade of grass, so this big Spartina grass. So these guys are a great example, and you can look at the grass if you look kind of right here. There we go. You can see it's kind of tall. Let's see. So these guys are a great example of how species biodiversity works, in that all of these species live in a very small space together, and they really depend on each other in a lot of ways. The Spartina grass has roots, and those roots go deep into the marsh mud, and they keep the marsh mud stable so that there can be kind of land mass there so that the other animals can live there and root in. So another thing that roots down in where the Spartina is are the mussels here. And so these guys kind of grow in the mud, and they anchor themselves oftentimes very near to this Spartina grass. And then the Spartina also has, like we said, the little marsh periwinkles, and the marsh periwinkles travel up and down that Spartina grass, and they kind of clean debris and different bacterial films and things off of the Spartina grass and help it stay healthy. And then the fiddler crabs, what do they do, Vivi Rose? What's your favorite thing to look at the fiddler crabs do? What do they do?
They just dirty little holes.
Right, so they dig little.
And they aerate the mud.
Wow, that's a great, yeah. So the fiddler crabs dig little holes. They like to burrow down in the mud.
And they make the mud more airy.
Right, and so they bring more oxygen down into the mud, which is good for the Spartina and the mussels and everything. So this is a great example of species biodiversity and why it is so important. So some other examples of diversity. So we've got species biodiversity, and then we've got two other kinds. We said we were going to go through three kinds of biodiversity, right?
Mm-hmm.
So another kind of biodiversity is genetic biodiversity, right?
Mm-hmm.
So genetic biodiversity, can you think of an example of genetic biodiversity? Because it is diversity or a variety of genes. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Like dogs.
Like dog breeds. So all dogs are the same species, right?
Mm-hmm. But their genes are different.
Right. And so what kind of dog do we have?
We have a Pomeranian, and she is so cute.
But she's teeny.
She's like
She's
more fluff than body.
Yes, she is more fluff than body. So she's teeny and she's fluffy, and she's not really going to do a great job as a sled dog, right? No. Smidgey's not going to do a great job as a sled dog. So when you look at different kinds of dogs, you can see how they're built for different kinds of work or different kinds of ecosystems, different things like that. Now that is an example of how humans have really been a part of how something has bred and how genetic biodiversity has happened. But that also happens in the natural world when you see kind of some biodiversity within a species to compete for different resources. Also, the last one we're going to talk about, because we're going to talk about three, was
ecological
biodiversity. And ecological biodiversity is this biodiversity among ecosystems. And so a great example that I used to work on when I was a marine biologist was the connection between a coral reef ecosystem and like a seagrass ecosystem. There were lots of animals that either lived on the reef and used the seagrass meadow for food or foraging, or sometimes even because that was a safer space where baby fish or juvenile species of the fish could survive better. So you had this interconnection between two different ecosystems, and that's ecological biodiversity. But we talk about all these different places, but biodiversity is everywhere, right? Right. So it's even in your backyard, wherever you are, whether you're in an urban environment, whether you're in a rural environment where you're kind of out away from the city, you can see signs of biodiversity anywhere you go. We just walked outside this morning and just picked up a plant that was sitting on the grass. Yeah, a little potted plant. And what did we find? Just by picking up a potted plant, Vivi Rose?
We found some roly-polies.
Some roly-polies. They also, some people call them pill bugs. So you can see our little pill bugs in there.
And a slug somewhere.
Yeah, there's a little slug in there. But even in the most kind of mundane places, you can find lots of different biodiversity. And so what we want to help people do is go outside and recognize that biodiversity that they see. If it's safe to go outside, if it's not safe to go outside, all you need is a window. So biodiversity is something that you can observe through the glass. You don't even have to go outside if that's not an option for you right now. But to observe biodiversity, either in your backyard or anywhere else, you need to know kind of where to look, right? Mm-hmm. And knowing where to look really has a lot to do with the way animals behave, especially if you want to look at animal biodiversity. Now, you can also go look out your window and observe plant biodiversity, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, so you can observe plant biodiversity. I feel like we may be having a technical issue. Mm-hmm. Hold on one second. All right.
One of our slides left.
Hold on one second. Let's see what we can do here. So Casey and our team behind the scenes, are we back? Let's see. Okay, Casey, are we back at this point? I'm looking for an I'll go.
We are back, Stacy, but I will tell you that your secondary camera that you are using to show us everything up close disconnected to the call.
Okay, perfect. We'll just stick with the main camera. Perfect. And that'll work just fine. So we can make that happen as long as this little fiddler crab doesn't keep trying to get away from us. Yeah. So what we were talking about is that you need to looking for biodiversity in your own backyard, whether you're looking through a window or whether you're wandering around in the marsh like we were. There are three places or three kind of indicators that you can look for to find that biodiversity. Vivi Rose, what are the three things that animals need to survive?
Food, water, and shelter.
So food, water, and shelter. I'm gonna trap our little fiddler crab for a little while so he doesn't get away from us. But so food, water, and shelter. So those are the three things that really, when you want to go and observe the biodiversity in your backyard, wherever that may be, you want to be able to kind of look for key indicators of food, water, or shelter. And so that's how we're going to try and create a biodiversity hotspot in our own backyards or right outside our windows today, because we're going to build a really simple backyard bird feeder. So what you're going to need for your backyard bird feeder is, let's see, what do we got here? So we've got some pine cones that we gathered just from a walk in the neighborhood last week. Some peanut butter or sunflower butter. I think this is sun butter or something. Some sort of nut butter will work, any kind. This is Vegetable shortening, that can be used in the place of the peanut butter or nut butter. Go ahead.
You could use some twine.
We're going to need some
Use
twine. Yep.
And you could use.
And we're going to need some, what? What do we got here?
We're going to need some of this. I don't know.
Some of that. So
What's
different
this
kinds,
again?
we've got different kinds of birdseed, right? So we've got a few different things here that I want. If you don't have birdseed, if you don't have it, I'm going to pull this back so I think everybody can see. Because since we lost that one computer, Casey, definitely let us know if we don't have everything in the visuals for people. So these are our different kinds of birdseed. So we've got these, which has a combination of these black sunflowers. It's also got some.
It's also got some peanuts.
Right. It's got, so if you don't have birdseed at home, you can just use peanuts. We've got some, in this mix, it's got some corn, which is what they call deer corn or cracked corn. But we also, you can use popcorn. And one of the things, what did we do with this popcorn, Baby Rose?
We just crushed it up.
So yeah, we took a mallet to it and crunched it up so that we could get little birds and big birds. And then this is called Thistle, which is another kind of bird seed that you can buy. But this is for smaller, yeah, it's for smaller birds. So you've got a bunch of different kinds of birds that you could observe from all these different kinds of foods. So we're going to make what we're going to call our biodiversity hotspot right now. So what you'll do you want to do some butter or do you want to do shortening?
Can I do the shortening?
Yep, you do the shortening. All right, so all you're going to do is take a pine cone. All right.
Oh, and sometimes your pine cone can be kind of prickly.
Yeah, our pine cones are a little bit prickly. So you just put your stuff inside the pine cone or around on the pine cone. Let it get in the little cracks and crevices and nooks and crannies. Okay.
Like that.
And Viv, are you going to use the thistle or are you going to use the mixed seed?
I'm going to use the mix.
You're going to use the mixed seed? Okay. So here we go.
This is fun.
It is fun. So it's a super easy way. You don't have to have a lot of this stuff on it. It's just really to be the glue that binds everything together. But we just found these pine cones, literally they were laying in the street. And so once you get your kind of goo all over your pine cone, I'm going to finish this one up while Viv is working on the one with the vegetable shortening. You just drop it in the seed, just like so.
Mama's using this.
I am. I'm using the thistle here. There we go. And the birds are going to be able to get it however deep it is in the cone. So feel free to just pick that up and kind of drop it in between the little needles, the little pieces of the pine cone that are sticking out. And there we go. So there is one. And what we'll do is we'll leave that to sit and dry for just a little bit. So I'm going to leave this one to sit right here and dry for a little bit.
I just need to finish mine real quick.
Well, that's fine. You go ahead. You finish while I talk through the next steps, okay? I also see that we've got Patricia from Primetime Palm Beach is saying hi. Thanks so much for being here, Patricia. We're so glad you're here. We also see Susan saying hello today. So what you're going to do once your pine cone has gotten mostly dry, Viv's will work a lot faster than mine will because of the sunflower butter that we used. But you're going to get some twine, so just a bit of twine, and cut yourself a length that will work for where you want to hang it. We're going to hang this outside on one of our trees because we found that the trees are the best place to attract the birds with these particular things instead of kind of on the house. But you can hang them anywhere, and you're just going to give yourself a loop on each end. So I'm going to put, this is kind of the loop on the pine cone end for me. And we'll just loop it through those pieces of the top of the pine cone to make sure that everything stays plop, just like that. There we go. And so we'll hang this outside off of one of the trees. Now I'm going to let you, Baby Rose, Tell them what you're doing now.
So I'm just putting the bird seed in. It's mostly sticking to my fingers.
You can just mush the pine cone down a little bit. Like this.
Yay!
Mush. This is Viv's great joy in life, is to mush things in. So, all right. You want to do like this? Look. Squish.
Squish it.
Squish it in.
Squish. Squish. More squish.
So more squishing. So lots of fun. I see that we do have a question. So Patricia and Piper want to know if birds can be allergic to peanut butter like humans. That is a great question. I would not say that they aren't. I don't actually know the answer to that question. I'm sure that there can be allergies to any number of foods in any number of species. But my guess would be if a bird was allergic to a nut like that or had an allergic reaction to something like that, it probably wouldn't do so well in the wild. So that would be one of those good reasons to see genetic biodiversity in birds, is so that you can see that if all of the birds are suddenly allergic to peanuts, that could probably be an issue. But I'm not 100% sure. I've never had anybody ask that question. That is a fantastic question.
Ooh.
So Viv, are you about done?
And
Okay. So what we would do is, we're running a little short on time. So what we would do, let's sit it down. We would put the twine around this as well and hang both of these from our tree outside. But you can do, you can do as many as you have pine cones. So this is a pretty easy project to do at home.
And it's really fun.
It is. But we're going to show you one more thing really quickly. The other thing, we talked about food and we talked about water as two things that animals need to survive. So another way that you could attract animals with a biodiversity and create a biodiversity hotspot in your yard or outside your window would be to create your own bird bath. So, and that can be just as simple as taking a little bit of super glue. We're not going to do it right now, but you take a little bit of super glue, glue the bottom of this pot together, and then sit those here. We would take a little super glue just around the rim right here. And then we would sit this right on top.
And then we would fill this with water.
Right. And
then the birds would just play in it.
And that would be a water source, especially in the summertime. Bird feeders are usually a lot more effective in the winter, and we're kind of going into spring and summer right now in the US. So this bird feeder project might be a little better for our friend Barbara, who is down in Australia. And we see you out there, Barbara. I'm so glad to see you.
G'day, Mike.
Most people seem to think, we got some feedback about our birds allergic to peanuts question too. And most people seem to think that that's not something that would happen, that birds would not be allergic to peanuts. Especially a bird that wouldn't eat peanuts, basically the bird would avoid it. So, so this is another way that you could have a water source nearby if it's getting to be summer, and that may be a way to attract birds. And then we've also got a couple of other examples of ways that you can build a bird feeder if you don't have pine cones. So you can build a little bird feeder out of anything. And like we said, corn, peanuts, any kind of food would work.
Milk carton.
So there's one out of a milk carton, birdseed, and a straw. You want to show them the other one, Vivi Rose?
This one is also a milk carton, birdseed, and straw, and tape.
Yeah, and so Vivi Rose decorated that one. And we would do the same thing. We'd put some string right through here, and we would just hang it up just like we would the pine cones that we created that were covered in seed. There's a little bit of seed in each one of these. Hope you guys can see that.
Oh, I can put some more in there.
Well, that's okay. We'll sit it over here for now. But we've just got a couple of minutes left. Are there any other questions out there about how you can set up a biodiversity hotspot right outside your window or in your backyard? Do you have any questions about why we would, do you know why we would set up a biodiversity hotspot?
I think I do, because some biodiversity is really changing.
Oh, because biodiversity is important and it's changing in places. Okay. And is that good or bad when we
Sometimes it's good, but sometimes it's bad.
Okay, how can it be bad?
It can be bad, like the biodiversity is dying.
Okay, so when biodiversity goes down,
Biodiversity goes down.
yeah.
But when it's good, biodiversity goes up.
So that is a good thing. You're right.
Or if it goes up too much.
Well, I don't know. We don't know about that because for one thing, there are millions. They've only like documented. I think it's like nearly 1.5 million species, but they think there's like 7 million species left on the earth to even find. So we don't even know how much biodiversity there is on the planet, right? But I'll tell you what, we do know biodiversity is important. And one thing that EarthEcho is doing to help protect biodiversity and keep biodiversity high is we're running a contest. We're running an amazing contest called the EarthEcho Challenge.
EarthEcho.
And so the EarthEcho Challenge is a biodiversity protection competition. It's an online application that young people can submit their ideas on how they can protect biodiversity locally. So if you in your community start researching what kind of biodiversity is there, what kind of native species that you may think need to be protected, or what kind of natural habitats need to be restored, if you have ideas on how those things can happen in your community, then go to www.ourechochallenge.org and let us know. There's a form. Fill out the form, submit your idea. You could win $10,000 to put that idea into action.
Whoa.
$10,000. So please go check that out today. And be sure to tune in on Wednesday, April 15th, when we'll have a new face on Snack Size Science as we explore plant phenophases. Phenophases.
That's
Say
a
that
tongue twister. 5
times fast. Yeah.
Phenophaser.
So plant phenophases and dissect a flower.
That sounds cool.
I think so too. And be sure to subscribe to EarthEcho's YouTube channel to catch all of our virtual programs this month. We've got a lot going on this month. And we would always appreciate if you are enjoying our virtual programs and you like to tune in, go to www.earthecho.org/donate. Any small donation would be very appreciated in this time where we've shifted our programming to help teachers and parents and homeschool folks get some of this content out there to help everybody out.
So thank you so much for doing Snack Size Science with us today.
Even in your own backyard or empty yard or your window, it's a great place to keep exploring, everybody. So even when we're being safe and staying home, we can explore.
Thank you so much for watching. And what do you call a deer with no eyes?
A deer with no eyes?
No idea.
All right, Baby Rose. That closes us out unless we have, we do have one more question. Let me answer. Is there a way to keep natural predators away from your bird feeder? It depends on the predator. More often than not, the thing we're trying to keep out of our bird feeders is squirrels. And
hanging, that's hard.
Yeah, and hanging from something that wouldn't allow them to come down is one way to do it. There's also a way that you can put cages, kind of if you build a little chicken wire ball around your feeder that the birds can get through, but the squirrels can't. That's one way. Definitely don't place your bird feeders in an area where a cat or another predator may come after them.
Definitely not a cat.
Yeah.
Not a cat.
That's a great question, Jared. I'm sorry I didn't hit on that, but we definitely want to try and make sure that where we place them is not where a natural predator would come after the birds. But we can also kind of put some cages and different things like that around to help protect them. So guys, be sure to share our Snack Size Science videos with your friends who are remote learning. And again, don't forget to smash the subscribe button.